Real quick, if you're looking for a different kind of film study, check out my movie channel. The link is in the description, so you can just click on it right there. I have a Dune 2 review on there. I have a Christopher Nolan tier list, a Quentin Tarantino tier list, a lot of other fun stuff. Check it out if you want. And anyway, let's get back to your regularly scheduled video. All right, let's talk about Mike Williams, one of the newest additions of the Jets. There's plenty of new additions to the Jets all of a sudden, and I wanted to make a video talking about him because I think he's a really interesting player. I think that, a lot of people kind of talk about him as good player, can't stay healthy. All right, let's move on. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about what actually he does well, and also what are some of the criticisms maybe I have of him, not just of his game, but the fact that he can't stay healthy and all that stuff. So let's get into it. Starting off with this play. What's going to happen is, I think the main thing you look at and what you like about a guy like Mike Williams is how well he can simply just win one-on-ones. That's kind of how I always felt like the true test of a number one wide receiver. Can you win on the outside? And, they already have a number one wide receiver in Garrett Wilson who can win one-on-one matchups. But having another guy who might get easier one-on-one matchups and might not be getting double-teamed, if he can win, well, that can go a long way. Watch how when this play begins, kind of a slant route, and you see right away there is a window to make this throw. It's not like wide open or anything. He's not winning by, a million feet or anything like that, but there's a window. As you see, Herbert hits Williams. Williams makes the catch. You get like 8 yards right there, which is important, right? If it's a 3rd down and 5 and you need a guy to win a one-on-one matchup, can he do it? Yes, he can. I'm not saying there aren't players who can do it with a higher at a higher percentage than he can, but there are players who can do it at a higher percentage than he can, but I think he's still very good at it. But honestly, something like this is really the key factor, the key thing that when you think about Mike Williams, what you think about with him is he's a downfield target. He might not be the highest batting average guy. There might be guys who are more consistent, but he can win in big ways. He can hit you some home runs, and again, if it's this concept with a single safety deep and you have Garrett Wilson on the other side, or maybe just on the same side but running a route more over the middle, the safety is going to probably look Garrett Wilson's way, so you might get Mike Williams in these one-on-one matchups. Watch how when Herbert takes the snap, he is going to look down the field, he fires down the field, and right here there is an opportunity. This is not a wide open opportunity. Right? He's not a huge separation guy. It's just kind of not really his game. He's more of a, hey, put the ball up in his direction and he can make a play type of player. And as you see, despite the fact that that was not a great throw, he is still, well, I shouldn't say not a great throw, but not a perfect throw. It was in a tough spot for him to make the play. He was still able to make the play. This is what, at his best, he can bring to the table. And this is how, he had, in 2019, he had a season where he had over 20 yards per reception. And he, played 15 games that year. He had over 1,000 yards. Like he was that's what he can bring to the table, is he can be a downfield threat. But I also want to be clear, that's not all he can do. He can win in other ways. Like something like this, for example, it's going to be, once again, a one-on-one matchup with that Tennessee player right there. Get 4th down and 1. So a big play early on in this game as they're trying to get more than just 3 against Tennessee. And you're going to see him kind of use his physicality. He is a big-bodied player, and he definitely uses that to his benefit. He's 6'4", so he's going to use physicality, which is just something you should be doing at this point if you're a receiver, especially a big receiver, because as a corner, kind of not a lot you can do to counter this. Essentially, the way things are called is that you can, almost get away with murder as an offensive player, but, if you do something half as aggressive back as a defensive player, then you're going to get flagged. So it's kind of what, and I don't even really think this is like a, something I would say is like a massive push off, but it's a bit of a push off. However, Herbert is going to, make the throw over there, and you see Williams is able to make the grab. And honestly, on a 4th and 1, kind of a good call, actually, to do a push-off, because if you get called, worst-case scenario, well, now it's 4th and 11, and you can still kick a field goal. But anyway, already good job, gets the 1st down, and again, creates contact in a way that usually isn't going to get called. But then also, watch him make a move in open space and picks up even more yards. One of his most underrated aspects, I think, is he will break tackles. Like, he is pretty good in open space. I think we kind of all view him as just a downfield target, and while that's certainly what makes him special, that's what he's best at, he can do other things. Like this, it's going to be a quick screen pass towards the top of the screen, and they're throwing it to Mike Williams, who's not the guy you necessarily think about as someone you want to throw screen passes to, but watch what he does. Herbert is going to take the snap, he throws the ball towards Williams, and right here, it doesn't look like it's a great situation. It really doesn't. It looks like, okay, you're going to gain a few yards right here. However, watch him, move up, and he is going to be able to get towards that first down marker. Really good job by him, and these are what he brings to the table for the New York Jets. He's one of those guys where it's like, if you want him to be a number one receiver, he'll be that on some days. He's probably not going to be that on every day. But if you want him to be like a good number two receiver, he's going to be that every day that he plays. The obvious criticism is he doesn't always play a ton. Going over here, if we look at his Pro Football Focus grades year in and year out since he entered the league in 2017, he's never had a season where he's had over 900 snaps. You see that, pretty much every season he'll be good to miss at least a game or two. Now, I do have to say, I think there's maybe a bit of a perception thing in terms of like how often he misses major playing time, because while his first season and his most recent season, he did get hurt for the majority of the year. Last year, he only played 3 games. Usually, he'll give you most of the season. Now, again, you don't want him to give you 14 games and then get hurt for the rest of the year. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you'd much rather him get banged up early on, be healthy for the playoffs, right? But that being said, if he misses, weeks 3 through 6, but then plays the rest of the season, that's honestly a great deal for 1 year, $15 million. That wouldn't be a bad call whatsoever, I think, for Mike Williams. So there's definitely really high upside for a guy like this. And, again, the floor is not a disaster. If he only gives you 700 snaps, well, that's still pretty good for $15 million for a number 2 wide receiver. He is someone who is very good. And again, you see the consistency. With the exception of his first year, PFF has always said he's at the very least been very good. Of course, PFF not the end all be all, but it's still worth mentioning. I think the Jets have been, in a lot of ways, really smart in how they've handled this offseason. I think, I put them in my 7 biggest winners video I made, not too long ago. I think they have been really smart at a lot of this stuff. I think what they've done to know what their weaknesses are and do their best to counter that, which is really good. I think a lot of times teams almost feel a bit too optimistic about certain things, and especially when your quarterback goes down, it's really easy to sit there and say, well, if Zach Wilson wasn't out there, if it was Aaron Rodgers, the receiving core would have looked better. The offensive line would have looked better. Okay, probably true, but it probably still wouldn't have looked great. So going out and adding a couple tackles, adding a wide receiver, it's really smart stuff. Now, again, you could sit here and say, would you rather a guy who doesn't have injury history? Because, Tyron Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Mike Williams, have all gotten hurt recently, right? So that's absolutely the concern. And the way the Jets are kind of currently assembled, it almost seems very unlikely they won't have an injury at a certain point. But you know who you can say that about? Literally every team. Like, every team has guys of injury histories because football's a physical game and guys get hurt. But for someone like Mike Williams, you just hope he can stay healthy, because if he can, this Jets team could be potentially awesome next year. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.